For the past 4 weeks, I've been studying the flying tigers as a part of Shanghai American School's Microcampus program. 14 other students and myself have been staying in Yunnan in a small village called Xizhou. Before leaving Shanghai, each of us picked a topic that held high personal interest. The options range from religion to local cuisine to architecture, but I chose the flying tigers. I chose this topic because of my interest for history. It allowed me to look not only into Chinese history, but a part of American history as well. What stood out to me was the chance to restore a piece of the village, as well as learn about a part of World War II. The Flying Tigers were the first American volunteer aviation group, although they were fighting more as mercenaries. They provided air cover for the Burma Road and were led by Lieutenant Claire Chennault. There is an old radar station in Zishanyi, a village right next to Xizhou. The Linden Center has received the approval for funding for the restoration of the radar station. During my time here, I have focused my research on the relationship between the Flying Tigers and the locals. To fully understand that relationship, one must take into consideration the locals' opinions and thoughts, as well as the experiences amongst the locals and radar men. The opinions and thoughts that the locals had about the Flying Tigers. There were about 7 or 8 radar men who stayed at the Zhao ancestral home. When asked whether or not the villagers minded the occupation of their home, Mrs. Zhao said no, everyone welcomed the radar men to live there. The Flying Tigers have earned an international reputation as brave heroes who fought to protect China. The interactions and experiences between the locals and the men of the Flying Tigers. I was very fortunate to have found Mrs. Zhao, an elder woman over 80 years old who clearly remembers the Flying Tigers during their time here. She told me that every day when she came home from school, they would offer her candy. The men also had a Jeep truck that many children would love to chase after. When the locals invited them to their homes, they would refuse out of courtesy and respect. At the Linden Center, there is a translation book that was given by a local villager. It was used primarily for English to Chinese translations, but also as identification guides for Japanese planes as well as the symbols for the ranks of the Chinese army. The relationships and the connections that I've made in Xizhou. The relationship between the locals and the Flying Tigers is something I have closely related to my own relationships with the locals here. The radar men and villagers' relationship only developed further and grew while the Flying Tigers lived here. My connections with the locals here in Xizhou are getting stronger as the days pass, and I am glad those connections have been made. Learning from Mrs. Zhao is an experience that I thoroughly enjoyed because of her kindness and openness. The more people I interviewed, the more comfortable I became with speaking and having a conversation with them. Microcampus has enabled me to do so many things that I otherwise would not have been able to do or had the motivation to do. I do think I have understood the impact and relationship of the Flying Tigers and the locals. What Mrs. Zhao told me about the thoughts and opinions of the locals, as well as the specific experiences she had during that time, has helped me to better understand what kind of relationship the Flying Tigers and locals had with each other. Microcampus has allowed me to grow as an individual and as a group member, and I am very thankful for that. Through the research process, I have been able to make multiple connections with people in the village, as well as grow as an individual and learn more about myself. It is amazing how Mrs. Zhao is able to clearly remember the Flying Tigers after 73 years. I can only hope that in 73 years, I will be able to remember Microcampus and all it has done for me.